I never imagined that one tiny recording device would destroy everything I thought I knew about my husband. If someone had told me 6 months ago that I'd be hiding beneath the driver's seat of my own husband's car, my hands trembling as I taped a tiny voice recorder into place, I would have laughed. Back then, I believed we were happy. Not perfect, but happy. We had been married for 8 years. We had built a comfortable life together in a quiet suburb outside Chicago. Every Sunday morning we drank coffee on the back porch. Every Friday night we ordered pizza and watched old movies. We argued about ordinary things: whose turn it was to do laundry, what color to paint the guest room, whether our aging Labrador needed another expensive trip to the vet. Nothing about our life looked unusual. That's why the changes were so easy to dismiss at first. It started with little things. My husband, Daniel, suddenly began taking his phone everywhere. Even when he walked to the mailbox, his phone stayed in his pocket. If he stepped into the shower, it came into the bathroom with him. At night, the screen faced downward on the nightstand, something he had never done before. When I asked about it, he smiled. Work's been crazy. I wanted to believe him, so I did, for a while. Then came the late nights. Daniel had always come home around 6. Suddenly, it became 8, then 9, sometimes after 10. Every explanation sounded reasonable: a client meeting, traffic, an emergency project, a coworker's birthday. None of those excuses seemed impossible, but together they began to feel rehearsed. I noticed something else. Whenever I entered the room unexpectedly, conversations ended. His smile appeared a fraction of a second too late. His eyes searched mine, as if measuring how much I already knew. It was subtle. Too subtle to accuse him, too obvious to ignore. One evening I asked if everything was okay. He looked genuinely surprised. "Of course," he answered. "Why wouldn't it be? You seem different." He laughed softly and wrapped his arms around me. "I've just been stressed." I wanted that hug to erase my doubts. Instead, it made them louder, because Daniel had always hugged me tightly. That night, he barely touched me. A week later, something happened that I couldn't explain away. Daniel fell asleep on the couch after another late night at work. His phone buzzed. Normally, I never touched it. We had always trusted each other. But curiosity whispered louder than guilt. The notification lit up the screen. No name, only a number. The preview contained 6 words. "She still doesn't suspect anything." My stomach tightened. Before I could unlock the phone, another notification appeared. The message disappeared, deleted remotely. Daniel woke up moments later. He smiled as though nothing had happened. Long day. I forced myself to smile back. Inside, something had already broken. Over the next few days, I became someone I barely recognized. I paid attention. I remembered details: receipts, gas station locations, credit card charges. Times he left, times he returned, small pieces that refused to fit together. One afternoon, while organizing paperwork in our home office, I found a bank statement buried beneath old insurance documents. There was a separate account, one I had never seen before. Thousands of dollars had disappeared into it over the previous year. The account wasn't hidden very well, almost as if Daniel believed I'd never think to look. I copied the account number onto a sticky note. When he came home that evening, I asked him a simple question: "Did we open another savings account?" He didn't hesitate. No. His answer arrived too quickly, too confidently. I nodded as though I believed him. Inside, another crack spread across my trust. Sleep became impossible. Every sound in the house made me wonder whether my husband was telling another lie. Every text message made my heart race. Every business trip became another unanswered question. One night I stood at the bedroom window, watching Daniel load something into the trunk of his car. A black duffel bag, heavy enough that he lifted it with both hands. He looked around before closing the trunk, not casually, carefully. like someone making sure no one was watching. I stepped away from the curtain before he could see me. When he came upstairs, he kissed my forehead. "Big meeting tomorrow." I smiled. Good luck. The lie between us had become a third person living inside our marriage. I confided in my best friend, Rachel. She listened quietly as I described everything. When I finally finished, she asked one question. "What are you afraid of finding?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out, because I wasn't afraid of discovering another woman. I was afraid that the man I loved had become someone I no longer knew. Rachel reached into her purse. She placed a tiny black device on the table. It looked almost harmless. "A digital voice recorder," she said. I stared at it. "I bought it years ago when my boss was stealing commission checks." "I can't." "You can. It feels wrong." Rachel leaned closer. "If he's innocent, you'll never need to hear it." I picked up the recorder. It weighed almost nothing. Yet it suddenly felt heavier than my wedding ring. The next morning, Daniel left for work. I watched his car disappear around the corner. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. For nearly an hour I walked around the kitchen, trying to convince myself to forget the whole idea. Maybe I was imagining everything. Maybe stress had changed him. Maybe every marriage goes through seasons like this. But then I remembered the message. "She still doesn't suspect anything." Those words echoed through my mind. Finally, I grabbed my keys. I drove to Daniel's office parking lot. I knew he always parked on the third level. He had shown me countless times. I parked several rows away and waited. 10 minutes. 20. 30. No sign of him. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of my car. Every footstep echoed through the nearly empty parking garage. My pulse thundered in my ears. I reached Daniel's SUV. The doors were locked. But I remembered something. Months earlier, he'd hidden a spare key inside the magnetic lockbox beneath the rear bumper for emergencies during road trips. I knelt beside the bumper. My fingers searched blindly. Then I felt it. The little black box was still there. Inside rested the spare key. I unlocked the driver's door, climbed inside, and looked around. The cabin smelled exactly like him. Coffee, leather, and the faint scent of cedar aftershave. With trembling hands, I reached beneath the driver's seat. I peeled away a strip of industrial tape, pressed the recorder firmly into place, checked twice to make sure it couldn't be seen. Then I quietly locked the car and walked away, trying not to look back. As I drove home, one thought kept repeating in my mind. I wasn't afraid of what I might discover anymore. I was afraid that, once I pressed play, there would be no way to return to the life I thought I had. And I had no idea that the recording waiting for me would expose a secret far darker than an affair. For the rest of that day, I couldn't focus on anything. The little recorder hidden beneath Daniel's driver's seat occupied every corner of my mind. Every time I looked at the clock, I imagined where he was, who he was talking to, and whether the tiny device was capturing the answers I'd been desperate to find. I hated what I was becoming. I had always believed trust was the foundation of marriage. My parents had taught me that. Friends admired our relationship because we never checked each other's phones or questioned late nights at work. Now I was secretly recording my own husband. The guilt sat like a stone in my stomach, but so did the fear. That evening, Daniel walked through the front door, carrying a bouquet of white lilies, my favorite flowers. He smiled warmly. "I thought you deserved something nice." For a split second, I questioned everything. Maybe I really was overthinking. Maybe he had noticed I'd been anxious and wanted to make me smile. He kissed my forehead and handed me the flowers. "You've looked tired lately." "I haven't been sleeping much." He frowned. "You should see a doctor." His concern sounded genuine. That was the hardest part. If he was lying, he was incredibly good at it. Dinner felt strangely normal. We talked about neighbors, the weather, our dog's upcoming appointment at the veterinarian. Everything sounded like the conversations we'd shared for years, yet underneath every sentence, I searched for hidden meaning. When he laughed, I wondered if it was real. When he smiled, I questioned whether he'd smiled the same way at someone else only hours earlier. I hated living inside my own thoughts. After dinner, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen for less than a second. Then he stood. I have to answer this. He walked outside onto the back patio. Not into the living room. Not upstairs. Outside, where I couldn't hear him. I quietly opened the kitchen window. The cool evening breeze drifted inside. I couldn't hear words. Only fragments. Tomorrow. She doesn't. Why? Everything is ready. My heart started pounding. When he returned inside 5 minutes later, I pretended to rinse dishes. Everything okay? I asked casually. Just work. Always another meeting. Always another excuse. The following morning, Daniel left before sunrise. That had never happened before. I watched from the bedroom window as he loaded the same black duffel bag into his SUV. He looked around the driveway before climbing into the driver's seat. Then he drove away. The recorder had gone with him. Now all I could do was wait. Waiting turned out to be the hardest part. Every minute felt like an hour. I tried cleaning the house. I folded laundry twice. I reorganized kitchen cabinets that didn't need reorganizing. Nothing distracted me. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Rachel. Any news? Nothing. You sound exhausted. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "What if it isn't another woman?" The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? There are plenty of reasons people keep secrets. I thought about that after we hung up. Financial trouble, illegal business, gambling, blackmail. The possibilities frighten me even more than the thought of an affair. Daniel didn't come home until nearly 11 that night. His shirt smelled faintly of cigar smoke. He had never smoked. His tie was missing. His sleeves were rolled up. His hair looked damp, as though he'd recently washed it. Tough day, I asked. You have no idea. He looked exhausted. Or maybe he wanted me to believe he was. As he headed toward the shower, I noticed something sticking out of his jacket pocket. A folded receipt. After the bathroom door closed, I carefully removed it. It wasn't from a restaurant or a gas station. It was from a luxury jewelry store downtown. Total purchase, 8,462.07. The date was yesterday. I read the receipt 3 times. We had never spent that much money without discussing it first. Never. By the time Daniel came downstairs, the receipt was back in his pocket. He acted as though nothing had happened. So did I. But another piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. The next afternoon, I decided to visit the jewelry store. I wasn't planning to confront anyone. I simply wanted answers. The young woman behind the counter greeted me politely. I was wondering if someone might have left a gift receipt here yesterday. She smiled apologetically. I'm sorry, ma'am. We can't discuss customer purchases. I understand. As I turned to leave, an older employee stepped out from the back room. He looked directly at me, then at the wedding ring on my finger. His expression changed, almost like he recognized me. Excuse me, he called. I stopped. I probably shouldn't say this. My pulse quickened. But if you're Mrs. Carter, Les. He hesitated. Your husband seemed nervous yesterday. Nervous. He kept asking whether custom engraving could be finished before next week. Custom engraving? For whom? The employee realized he'd already said too much. I'm sorry. He disappeared into the back office before I could ask another question. I walked outside feeling even more confused. An expensive piece of jewelry, a secret engraving, and Daniel hadn't mentioned any of it. That evening I searched our bank accounts again. The hidden account had another withdrawal. $20,000. Gone. No explanation. No transaction history I could understand. Just another transfer. Another secret. I took screenshots of everything. Something told me I'd need them someday. 3 days passed. 3 painfully slow days. Every morning Daniel left with the recorder still hidden beneath his seat. Every night he returned home looking more distracted, more distant. Then, on the fourth evening, everything changed. He walked into the house carrying the black duffel bag. Instead of taking it upstairs, he placed it inside the basement storage room. Then he locked the door. Locked it. Our storage room had never been locked before. Not once in 8 years. After dinner he went to bed unusually early. Within minutes, I heard him snoring softly. I stared at the bedroom ceiling. The basement key was hanging on his key ring. His jeans were folded neatly over the chair. My heart pounded so loudly, I thought it might wake him. Slowly, carefully, I slipped the keys from his pocket. Each tiny metallic sound felt deafening. Holding my breath, I crept downstairs. The storage room stood at the end of the hallway. The lock clicked open. Inside, cardboard boxes lined the walls. Old holiday decorations, camping equipment, paint cans. The black duffel bag rested in the corner. Exactly where he'd left it. I knelt beside it. My fingers trembled as I slowly unzipped the bag. Inside wasn't money, or clothes, or another phone. Instead, there were dozens of neatly organized file folders. Every folder had a different person's name. Some names meant nothing to me. Others did. One folder had my name written across the front in bold black marker. Another had Daniel's. And another made my blood run cold. It was labeled with the name of someone who had supposedly died nearly 10 years earlier. I had no idea why my husband was keeping files on that person. But I knew one thing. This wasn't about cheating anymore. This was something much bigger. As I reached for my own folder, footsteps suddenly creaked across the floor above me. Someone was awake, and they were heading toward the basement stairs. The sound of footsteps above me stopped my heart. I froze beside the open duffel bag, one hand gripping the folder with my name on it. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs refused to move. The wooden floor creaked again. One step, then another. Whoever was upstairs was heading toward the basement. I quickly slid the folder back into the bag, zipped it shut, and locked the storage room just as the basement light flicked on. Emily. It was Daniel. His sleepy voice echoed down the stairs. "What are you doing down there?" I forced myself to turn around slowly, praying my face didn't reveal the panic racing through me. "I heard a strange noise," I said, trying to sound calm. "I thought maybe a raccoon got into the basement window." Daniel looked at me for a long second. Then he smiled. "You've been watching too many crime shows." I laughed weakly. "Maybe." His eyes drifted toward the locked storage room. For just a moment his expression changed. Not fear, not anger, calculation. Then it was gone. "Come back upstairs," he said. "It's almost midnight." I nodded. As we climbed the stairs together, I couldn't stop thinking about those folders, especially the one with my name. The next morning, I barely spoke during breakfast. Daniel seemed unusually cheerful. He poured my coffee, asked about my plans for the day, even kissed my forehead before leaving. It felt rehearsed, almost as though he was trying too hard to appear normal. As soon as his SUV disappeared down the street, I grabbed my purse. Today wasn't about the folders. Today was about the recorder. If I was lucky, everything I needed was already inside it. Hours crawled by. I kept checking the clock. 4 o'clock, 5, 6. Finally, just after 7, Daniel came home. He looked exhausted. "I'm going to shower," he said, tossing his keys onto the kitchen counter. "Long day. The longest. A perfect." The moment I heard the shower running upstairs, I grabbed the spare key from the drawer and hurried outside. The recorder was exactly where I'd hidden it beneath the driver's seat. My hands shook as I peeled away the tape. The tiny red light blinked once. It had recorded everything. I slipped it into my pocket, carefully taped an identical spare recorder back into place. and returned inside before Daniel finished showering. If he noticed anything, he didn't mention it. That night, I pretended to be tired. "I think I'm going to bed early." "Good idea," he replied. Instead, I waited until he fell asleep. Then I quietly carried my laptop and headphones into the guest bedroom. The recorder sat on the desk in front of me. Weeks of fear. Weeks of questions. The answers were finally waiting. I took a deep breath. Pressed play. The first 20 minutes were painfully ordinary. The engine started. The radio played classic rock. Traffic noises. Turn signals. Coffee cups rattling in the cup holder. Daniel even sang along to one song terribly out of tune. I almost laughed. Maybe Rachel had been right. Maybe I'd imagined everything. Then, another voice climbed inside. A woman. "You made sure she didn't follow you?" Daniel answered quietly. "No." "She's starting to ask questions, though." My fingers tightened around the headphones. The woman sighed. "We're running out of time. I know. If she finds the documents." "She won't." There was a long silence. Then Daniel spoke again. "I'll handle it before next Friday." The recording clicked as the SUV started moving again. The woman never mentioned her name, but her voice sounded strangely familiar. I couldn't place it. Not yet. The next recording was from 2 days later. Another passenger. This time a man. His voice was rough and older. "I don't like involving your wife." Daniel answered immediately. "Neither do I." "Then tell her." "I can't. She deserves the truth." I promised. Silence filled the car. Finally, the older man said something that made my stomach tighten. "Secrets always survive until someone gets hurt." The recording ended. I replayed that sentence 3 times. Someone gets hurt. Was that a warning or a threat? I skipped ahead another day. This recording lasted almost an hour. Most of it was driving. Then Daniel's phone connected to the car speakers. An incoming call. He answered using Bluetooth. "I found another investor," a man's voice said. "Good. We still need her signature." "No." Daniel sounded unusually firm. "We're not forging anything." My breath caught. "Investor, signature, forgery." The caller laughed. "You're getting soft." "I'm serious." "If she finds out later." "I'm ending this before that happens." The line disconnected. I stared at my laptop screen. What exactly was Daniel involved in? I listened through every recording until nearly 3 in the morning. Hours of conversations, fragments, names I didn't recognize, addresses, phone numbers, financial discussions. But no affair, not even close. Instead, everything pointed toward some kind of secret business operation. One that Daniel seemed trapped inside. Then I reached the final recording. It was only 9 minutes long. The moment it started, I recognized the woman's voice again. This time I knew exactly who she was. It was my sister, Olivia. I nearly dropped my headphones. Olivia lived nearly 500 miles away. What was she doing in Daniel's car? Her voice trembled. "You have to tell her." "I will, when it's safe." "It will never be safe." "I know." She started crying. I hate lying to her. So do I. There was another long silence. Then Daniel whispered 7 words that completely shattered every theory I'd built over the past month. "I'm trying to save her life." "Olivia." I stopped breathing. Save my life. From what? Nothing made sense anymore. If Daniel wasn't betraying me, why had he hidden everything? Why the secret bank account? Why the mysterious files? Why the lies? I sat frozen until another sentence drifted through my headphones. Olivia whispered, "If she remembers what happened that night." Daniel interrupted immediately. "She must never remember." The recording ended. I stared into the darkness of the guest room. That night. What night? I searched my memory over and over. There was no missing night, no forgotten accident, no unexplained event. At least none that I could remember. Then something strange happened. A memory flashed through my mind. Just for a second. Rain, broken glass, someone screaming my name, bright headlights, and then nothing. I jerked upright, my heart pounding. The image disappeared as quickly as it had come. Had I imagined it? Or had the recording awakened something buried deep inside my mind? At sunrise, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront Daniel. Not yet. Instead, I was going to discover what happened on that night, even if it meant uncovering a truth someone had spent years trying to keep hidden. Because deep down, I knew one thing. The greatest lie in my marriage wasn't happening in the present. It had begun years before I ever suspected my husband of keeping secrets. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Daniel's voice again. I'm trying to save her life. Then Olivia's trembling reply. If she remembers what happened that night. Those words replayed over and over until sunrise. For weeks, I had convinced myself my husband was having an affair. Now I wasn't even sure I knew who the real victim was. Me, Daniel, or someone else entirely. I called in sick to work. Then I drove to the county library. Not because I expected to find answers there. Because I needed somewhere quiet to think. I opened my laptop and began searching for anything connected to my life before I married Daniel. Old newspaper archives, traffic accidents, crime reports. Anything. Nothing. It was as if the mysterious night had never existed. Until I searched my own name together with the year before our wedding. One article appeared, just one. The headline made my pulse quicken. Local wo man sarvives fatal hijhwa yicnt. Fatal. I clicked the article. The report was surprisingly short. It explained that I had survived a violent collision on a rain-soaked highway. Another driver had died instantly. Authorities had called it a tragic accident. No further investigation. No criminal charges. I stared at the screen. Why couldn't I remember any of this? I remembered buying my first apartment, my college graduation, meeting Daniel. But the accident, nothing, just darkness. I drove straight to my mother's house. If anyone knew the truth, it was her. She welcomed me with a warm smile. Emily! What a surprise. I didn't waste time. Mom, her smile faded. I was in a fatal car accident before I married Daniel. She became perfectly still. Who told you that? So it's true. She looked toward the kitchen window instead of answering. You suffered a serious head injury. Why don't I remember? The doctors said memory loss was normal. That's not what I'm asking. She remained silent. I could feel my heartbeat growing louder. What really happened that night? Her eyes filled with tears. I promised who? Oh, she whispered one name. Daniel. My world tilted. Daniel had asked my own mother to keep secrets from me. For years. Why? What promise? Mom sat slowly in her chair. He said remembering would destroy you. I deserve the truth. I know. She looked 10 years older than she had 5 minutes earlier. The police ruled it an accident. That isn't an answer. No, it isn't. She reached into an old cabinet. After searching for nearly a minute, she removed a faded envelope. I hoped I'd never have to give you this. Inside were hospital records, insurance papers, photographs. The first photograph made me stop breathing. It showed my car, or what was left of it. The front end had been crushed beyond recognition. Rainwater covered the road. Emergency lights reflected across shattered glass. How had I survived? Then I noticed something strange. The driver's door wasn't crushed. It had already been opened. Someone had pulled me out. Someone had saved me. Who found me? Mom answered quietly. Daniel. I looked up. He wasn't your husband yet. He was driving home from work when he saw the accident. He climbed into the wreck to reach you. I stared at the photographs again. Firefighters, police officers, ambulances. One picture showed a young man kneeling beside a stretcher. His clothes were soaked. His hands were covered in blood. Daniel. I barely recognized him. He never told me. He didn't want you to feel indebted to him. I couldn't speak. Everything I believed about him kept shifting. First, I thought he was cheating. Then I thought he was hiding a crime. Now I discovered he had once saved my life. So why all the lies now? That evening I drove home in silence. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Daniel's SUV wasn't there. Neither was the black duffel bag. A strange feeling settled over me. Something was happening inside the house. I walked straight to the office. The hidden bank statements were exactly where I'd left them. So were my screenshots. Then I noticed something new. One folder was missing. The folder containing copies of my insurance documents. Had Daniel taken it? Or had someone else been inside the house? I searched every drawer. Nothing. The folder had disappeared. My phone vibrated. Rachel. Emily. She sounded frightened. At home. Leave. What? Right now. My stomach tightened. Rachel, what's wrong? I saw someone parked outside your house this afternoon. So, they weren't watching your house. They were taking pictures. Pictures. Ooh, I don't know. But when they noticed me, they drove away immediately. A cold chill traveled down my spine. Was someone watching me? Or watching Daniel? I locked every door, closed every curtain. Then I remembered something. The file with my name. I had never opened it. If Daniel truly wanted to protect me, why keep a secret file about me? There had to be another copy somewhere. I thought back to the basement, the storage room, the duffel bag, if Daniel had taken it, maybe. The cabinet. I hurried downstairs. Behind an old shelf sat a gray metal filing cabinet I'd ignored for years. It wasn't locked. Inside were dozens of neatly organized documents, medical records, insurance claims, police correspondence. Then, a thick envelope labeled simply FREMIO. My hands trembled. The envelope had never been sealed. Inside was a handwritten letter. The first line stole the air from my lungs. Emily, if you're reading this, it means I failed to keep my promise. Daniel, he had written it. Years ago. I continued reading. There are things about the accident that you don't remember because your brain protected you. I wanted to protect you too. But some people never stopped looking for what was lost that night. If they discover you remember anything, you'll be in terrible danger. I turned the page. Another sentence. Another shock. The driver who died that night wasn't the person everyone believed. I stopped. What did that mean? The article had clearly said another driver died. Was Daniel saying? The police had identified the wrong victim. Impossible. Unless the entire accident had been built on a lie. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed downstairs. The sound of breaking glass shattered the silence. Someone had entered the house. I quickly stuffed Daniel's letter into my pocket. The footsteps were slow, deliberate. Not Daniel. Not Rachel. Someone else. I quietly switched off the basement light and pressed myself against the wall. The footsteps moved closer. Closer. Then stopped directly outside the basement door. Whoever it was, they whispered only 4 words. She remembers. Find her. My blood turned to ice. They weren't looking for Daniel. They were looking for me. The words echoed through the basement like a nightmare. She remembers. Find her. I pressed both hands over my mouth to stop myself from gasping. Someone was inside my house. And they believed I had remembered something I wasn't supposed to remember. The basement door slowly creaked open. A flashlight beam swept across the room, back and forth. Methodically, I crouched behind the old furnace, my heart pounding so violently I was certain they could hear it. 2 voices, both male. Neither belonged to Daniel. She's not down here. Check every room. We can't leave until we find the letter. The letter. Daniel's letter. The one folded tightly inside my jacket pocket. That was what they wanted. Not me. The letter. I waited until their footsteps disappeared upstairs before quietly slipping through the basement's old exterior door that led into the backyard. Rain had started falling. Cold drops soaked through my sweater as I ran toward my car without looking back. My hands shook so badly I dropped my keys twice before finally starting the engine. The only person I could trust now was Daniel. He answered on the first ring. "Emily." His voice instantly changed. "What's wrong?" There were people in the house. Silence. Then, what did they say? They were looking for me. Another silence. Longer this time. Finally, he spoke. "Where are you?" "In my car. Drive to the old Riverside Marina." "What?" "Don't go home." "Daniel." "Tell me what's happening." "I will. I promise. But not over the phone." Then he hung up. 25 minutes later, I pulled into the deserted marina parking lot. Daniel's SUV was already there. He stood beside it in the pouring rain. The moment I stepped out, he wrapped me in the tightest embrace I'd ever felt. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, I whispered, "Were you ever going to tell me the truth?" He closed his eyes. "I wanted to." "Then why didn't you?" "Because every time you started remembering, someone got closer." We sat inside his SUV. For the first time in weeks, Daniel didn't hide anything. He took a thick folder from the glove compartment and placed it on my lap. "Everything is in there." Inside were police reports, court documents, private investigation records, photographs. One name appeared again and again. Victor Hale. I had never heard it before. "Who is he?" Daniel looked out the windshield. "He's the man who should have died that night." Slowly, piece by piece, the truth finally emerged. 8 years earlier, I had witnessed something I wasn't supposed to see. I had accidentally photographed a meeting involving Victor Hale, a wealthy real estate developer secretly laundering millions of dollars through fake charities and shell companies. I hadn't even realized what I'd captured. But Victor had. The night of the accident, someone forced my car off the highway. It wasn't an accident at all. It was an attempt to silence me forever. The other vehicle crashed first. Its driver died instantly. Victor disappeared before police arrived. Using his influence, he manipulated witnesses, destroyed evidence, and convinced authorities it had been nothing more than a tragic collision. My severe head injury erased most of my memories. Daniel, who had arrived minutes later, discovered pieces of evidence at the scene before anyone else, including my camera, the photographs, the proof. "You've had the evidence this whole time?" I asked. Daniel nodded. "I couldn't turn it over." "Why not?" "Because every investigator who touched the case suddenly quit." "What are you saying?" "They were being bribed." My blood ran cold. So I hid everything. The money went to private investigators, the secret bank account, funding witnesses, the late nights, meeting retired detectives who still believed the crash wasn't an accident. The jewelry receipt. Daniel smiled sadly. "It was your anniversary gift." He reached into his pocket. A small velvet box. Inside rested a beautiful diamond ring. Engraved inside the band were 6 simple words. "Forever, even when you forget." Tears filled my eyes. I had spent weeks believing the worst about the man who had been risking everything to protect me. Before either of us could speak again, headlights appeared. 3 black SUVs entered the marina. Daniel looked into his rearview mirror. They found us. Doors slammed. 6 armed men stepped into the rain. One of them was Victor Hale, older now, gray-haired, expensively dressed, smiling. He walked toward us slowly. "You should have stayed curious instead of remembering." Daniel squeezed my hand. "Stay behind me." Victor laughed. "You still think you can stop this?" Daniel looked at me, then quietly handed me a flash drive. "If anything happens, run." But I wasn't running anymore, not this time. Instead, I reached into my purse, pulled out my phone, and pressed one button. Victor frowned. "What did you just do?" I smiled through my tears. "I've been live streaming this entire conversation." His smile disappeared instantly. Hidden in my coat was a tiny wireless microphone Rachel had convinced me to wear after the break-in. Every word, every confession, every threat. Thousands of people were already watching online. Police sirens echoed in the distance. Victor turned to run. He didn't make it 3 steps before officers surrounded the parking lot. Within minutes, he and every man with him were lying face down in the rain. The investigation lasted almost a year. Federal prosecutors reopened the crash. Victor Hale was charged with attempted murder, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, witness intimidation, money laundering, and multiple counts of fraud. Several corrupt officials were arrested. The case made national headlines. The truth that had been buried for nearly a decade finally came to light. As for Daniel, I apologized for doubting him. He apologized for carrying the burden alone. We both realized that love cannot survive on silence, even when the silence is meant to protect someone. Healing took time. Trust wasn't rebuilt overnight. But this time, we rebuilt it together. A year later, we returned to the same stretch of highway where everything had begun. The road looked ordinary. Cars passed without slowing. Rain clouds drifted overhead. Daniel took my hand. No more secrets. No more secrets, I agreed. For the first time in years, I felt completely free. Sometimes I still think about that tiny recorder hidden beneath the driver's seat. I planted it because I believed it would expose my husband's betrayal. Instead, it uncovered a conspiracy that had stolen years of my life, and it led me back to the man who had never stopped fighting to save me. The recording I feared would destroy my marriage became the evidence that restored my life, and taught me that the most dangerous lies are often the ones hidden behind the truth we think we already know.